county invite. It's called Highlands County Forward 2050. It's a community workshop to discuss the future of Highlands County, which I think that many in this room would find appetizing. That'll be Thursday, November 7th. So that would be this Thursday at from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the Burt J. Harris Agricultural Center there in Sebring. So we wanted to make sure that you were aware of that invite. Thank you guys for joining us for this conversation tonight. Eva, would you please call the roll?
Dustin Woods.
Here.
Jack Edgemon. Donald Clarke.
Here.
James Oxer. Gary Freeman.
Here.
Chris Duncan. Here. Alex Ramos.
Here. With quite a few agenda items on our discussion table tonight, I am going to recommend that if there are no objections from the board, I'm going to recommend that we actually invert the local planning agency agenda order. I feel like some of the items lower on the agenda are going to be probably require much less discussion than some of the items that were placed first. So for the sake of everybody's time, if there are no objections from you guys, we're going to invert the agenda tonight and begin with the town hall rezoning.
You want to do the consent agenda just real quick and get that one done?
Yes, ma'am. I wanted to make that statement at least on the record before we vote on now an amended agenda. All right. Hearing no objections, I'll wait to entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented as well as the amended consent agenda.
I'll go ahead and say go ahead.
Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, you have a motion from me.
All right, we have a motion on the table.
I'll second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Roll call.
I'm sorry, call the roll.
Gary Freeman.
Yes.
Donald Clarke.
Yes.
Dustin Woods.
Yes.
James Oxer. Yes. And Chris Duncan.
Yes. Before we begin our meeting tonight, I want to just inform everybody that we will have plenty of time for public comment. This is a public hearing, so you have an opportunity to speak to some of the items that are on the agenda up for discussion. I'm curious, though, for the record, I have a couple of requests of citizens not on the agenda to speak. Is your intent to speak to something that is related to the agenda, or is your intent to speak to something that's not on the agenda at all? Because you will have an opportunity to speak just as being a part of this public hearing. Just curious. Because citizens not on the agenda, for the record, this will go last. So if you have something to bring to the table that is not already a part of tonight's hearing, you'll get a chance to talk about it at the very end. Otherwise, if the reason you filled this out was for what we're already discussing, you'll have an opportunity to speak to that. It'll be limited to 3 minutes. I will keep a timer, and I will let you know when those 3 minutes are up. So I'm not the bad guy. You can set a timer for yourself so you'll know when your time has run out, 3 minutes. All right, at this point, let me turn this discussion over to our town planner to begin with would you put that agenda in front of us? The packet is almost 400 pages tonight, so to save the town money, we didn't print copies for good reason, so we're going to be tracking along with you guys on the screen, so we may have some odd questions because it's not right in front of us. Let me turn this over to Ms. Rydell to begin the conversation with the Town of Lake Placid request.
Thank you, and because we're working a little bit out of order, you'll see me skipping around the packet and just trying to catch us all up in that regard. Let me know if you ever need me to stop or slow down, but we tonight and going forward are hoping to streamline these presentations and these hearings, so hopefully this gives you enough information that you feel comfortable making your vote, but you've all prepared and read through your packages or the most important documents, my staff report, and you go from there. So we are going to start with the rezoning of Town Hall, and I'm going to go ahead and work on pulling up that agenda item, but if we could go ahead and have our town clerk swear in any, it would be for expert testimony, not necessarily members of the public, and we would ask them to raise their right hand and advise if this is the truth, the whole truth. And did you have any other language you wanted to use, Bert? Nothing but the truth. All right.
You'll help me out with that, because I don't know where my little cheat sheet is.
So if you're an expert or preparing expert testimony, please stand up and raise your right hand. So that would be Mr. Craig, Ms. Sapp, Carl Kuhl. Okay. So we'll say it together. If raise your right hand and repeat after us. Do you swear that this is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. I know the language isn't quite right, but we left our little notepad at home. So, also going from there, we'll go over ex parte communication, because this is a quasi-judicial hearing, and we'll do some other housekeeping matters in the beginning of each hearing. So we'll go ahead and start with Dr. Oxer. Have you had any ex parte communication regarding the rezoning for Town Hall? Thank you, and that would just mean communication with anyone, any discussions, any talks you've had, even if it means reaching out to staff and asking for more information. So with Dr. Oxer, we have none. Mr. Duncan?
I have not.
Thank you. Mr. Woods?
Dana Rydell, Town Planner.
Thank you. Mr. Clarke?
I have not.
Thank you.
I have not.
Thank you.
I have not.
Thank you. So bear with me just a moment to get us to the right spot. And I might just end up using this package instead of the PowerPoint, because we also did musical chairs today, which means my mouse isn't working that great, but this keyboard is doing wonderful. My mouse isn't working. It's working for Eva. All the way down. Yep, thank you. Yep, thank you. So we'll go ahead and read the caption of this ordinance into the record. This is ordinance number 2024-06. It's an ordinance of the town of Lake Placid amending the conditions of the zoning classification for property located at 1069 US 27 North, Lake Placid, Florida, to add new allowable uses and address Scrivener's errors. So this is specifically for the property that we're sitting in today. For this property, when the town originally did a rezone of this property, it was to bring all of the existing and proposed uses into compliance with the proposed use of a town hall, because as most of us know, this property originally began as a church. So just to show us where we are right now, again, this is 1069 US 27 North. We're located right on the northeast side of US 27, not too far from St. John's Road. The existing future land use is mixed use. The existing future land use is public, semi-public. And the existing zoning is Lake Placid C1 PD. And the proposed zoning is still Lake Placid C1 PD. So this isn't actually a change to the zoning designation as much as it is a modification to the existing conditions. So the way that it was written was that it had multiple phases. Phase 1 of Town Hall said that it would allow professional offices, government offices, things of that nature, but Town Council looked far and wide for the best place to construct a police department and found that The best and most cost-effective location at this time would be right here in front of the Lake Placid Government Center. So we're specifically adding that as a use to Phase 2, and we are also updating the landscape plan. So when the town adopted their zoning for the town hall, they adopted the landscaping. We had, as they made it conforming, because remember, this property was originally developed in the unincorporated Highlands County with different standards. So for us to be able to apply the town code and redo our landscaping entirely was going to be very cost prohibitive. And it would be cost prohibitive for us to do that to any business, to ask them to redo their landscaping entirely to comply with our code if they've already met the Highlands County code. So this property met the code for landscaping by Highlands County standards when it was originally constructed. When the rezoning happened to allow a town hall, we then accepted the landscaping that existed at town hall as compliant. And since then, there were a couple tweaks to just a couple trees were taken down. So we made sure we reflected that in the new site plan. And Phase 2 of the site plan will also include landscaping updates to the police department specifically. It won't be for the entire property. So with this item, we're addressing landscaping, we're addressing uses, and we're addressing Scrivener's error, because I believe it might have been after the adoption of the zoning ordinance, but this building was then named the Lake Placid Government Center instead of just Town Hall, because we house multiple different entities here. So we just, for consistency, updated that throughout the ordinance as well. I will turn it back over to the local planning agency, to Chairman Woods. The motion options are available on the screen.
Thank you, Ms. Rydell. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, this is a public hearing. Any questions or comments from the public? Hearing none, I bring it back to the board for motion. Motions are presented in front of you. Yeah, if you are going to make a motion, I ask that you would read it exactly as it's written on the screen there.
I move for hearing number LPTC 24009RZ ordinance 2024-06 to the town council.
I'll second.
Was Dr. Oxer's microphone for that to be read to the record? Just curious. You tap that.
I could hear it okay out here.
Is it working now?
There we go.
I make the motion of number 1.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion? Eva, please call the roll.
Dr. Oxer,
Yes.
Donald Clarke,
Yes.
I'm sorry, Gary Freeman,
Yes.
Chris Duncan,
Yes.
Dustin Woods.
Yes. That brings us to item D, ordinance 2024-14, Miller's AC Planned Commercial Development Ordinance. I'll turn that back over to Ms. Rydell.
Thank you.
This is hearing on ordinance 20-23, 2023-14. I think that should probably be 2024-14. For Miller Central Air. I'm going to skip reading of the title. We'll address it by ordinance number alone. This is not an adoption or a hearing before town council, so I don't think title is required. You've got the proposed ordinance in your packet. Mr. Miller wants to move his business and build on South Main Street. We'll put up the site 4 individual lots that can be sold separately as businesses. The rest would be Rick Miller's air conditioning. Do you have any questions? Mr. Chairman, if there aren't any questions, I would submit the staff report into evidence and open it up to the public.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Questions or comments from the public? Also hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Miller, for being here tonight. Any commentary you have to provide on the subject?
Bert, Carl, or Mr. Miller can talk as long tonight as you would like.
Correct. Any of our agents or businesses being represented aren't under the same 3-minute time constraint as the public would be, just to make that clear.
No, I meant if you want to vote, go ahead. Otherwise, we'll
Very
go on with
good.
some more dog and pony show as long
No, that
as you'd like
sounds
to hear
good.
it.
Yeah, I hear that. Hearing no, any public comment at all? Hearing none? Oh, okay, we got one.
Ken LeBlanc. I just want to say something. Any business like Rick Miller's business who's growing can easily move outside of the town of Lake Placid. So I just want to say I commend him for working to stay in the town of Lake Placid. You know, I don't know if people realize how big his company has become and is becoming. I know because they park over in my place. I just think, you know, it's easier most times to move out of the town and get into a bigger space and stuff like that. He's working really hard to stay in the town of Lake Placid, and that's meaningful for the effort to revitalize downtown and stuff like that, to keep these jobs and these people in the downtown. So I just want to say I support what he's doing. I appreciate what he's doing. I hope everybody else appreciates, you know, the effort that he's putting in to stay in the town of Lake Placid, because it's not easy, you know, to accomplish what he's trying to accomplish here in the downtown area. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. If there's no other public comment, let me bring it back to the board and ask Eva to ask if there's a motion.
I'll motion to approve it, number 1. Second.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion? Eva, would you please call the roll?
Sorry, I didn't hear the second.
Second was
Gary Freeman,
Yes.
Donald Clarke,
Yes.
Dr. Oxer,
Yes.
Chris Duncan,
Yes.
Dustin Woods.
yes. That brings us to ordinance 2024-12, as well as ordinance 2024-11. Both of these are a part of the Haywood-Davis conversation with the development of the distribution center. I would ask Ms. Rydell, this is a 2-part public hearing here.
I'm impersonating Ms. Rydell tonight.
All right, Mr. Harris.
This way. You have 2 public hearings, one to amend the comp plan, the other to establish a plan development zoning district. Let's start with the comp plan amendment first, if you don't mind. That has been in your package, I believe. Does anybody have any questions on the comp plan amendment?
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none.
Might as well go to the audience and see if they've got any. I mean, Kim, the engineers, and I can talk for a week on this.
Sure.
Do you want to hear it, or are you comfortable?
Let's hear from the public first.
Changing to the distribution center. Do you have a map of it? Let's put the map up. We'll admit the staff report, or attach the staff report, submit it into the record, rather, and the application. You'll see the applicant is providing a new road from 27 right across from the hospital, asking DOT to put a traffic light there. It comes around and meets with St. John's, adds right-of-way to make St. John's going north about 120, 130 feet wide. It'll be a county road. The county engineers approved. The balance of it has been moved as far to the east as possible to be away from the nursing home or retirement facility, and as far back from 27. Landscape plans are under discussion, will be completed at a later date. Not a lot of services and a heck of a lot of tax revenue. You might see if there are comments from the public. If you want to talk more, we'll put
think
the
that's,
Duncan County show on.
That's a sufficient overview, Mr. Harris. Thank you. Any comments or questions from the public related to this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Lake Placid Planning Agency. I come to you tonight, my name is Ray Royce, 113 Waters Edge Lane here in Lake Placid, but I come to you tonight in my capacity as Chairman of the Highlands County Economic Development Commission. This is the type of project that the citizens and businesses of Lake Placid have been asking Highlands County, and in particular the Economic Development Department, to work towards bringing to our area for years and years and years. And not only, obviously, does this project, as Mr. Harris alluded to, create tremendous ad valorem revenue stream for the town with very little services required from the town, it also opens up an area with the transportation corridor that's part of this project to a lot of other potential projects in the future. So I believe town council's already heard this once and sent it forward to a second hearing, but I would encourage you all to strongly support this, because not only is this a good project, but this project will facilitate additional job creation, additional investment in both the town of Lake Placid and the greater Lake Placid area. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Royce. Any other public comment? Yes, sir.
Not as tall as Ray. My name is Robert Chatterton. My only question in this regard, I'm not opposed to this as per se, but the Highlands County Commission Board was discussing September 13th about the road becoming 27 is the only artery through here. And now we're going to have all these extra vehicles, and Don Elwell was speaking about how, quote unquote, dangerous the roads is, the increase of accidents, talking about building a bypass for truckers and this and that. Are we kind of fighting ourselves here? Because I don't know about building a road across the lake or anything like that. The road's only so wide, and I don't know if there's any planning to deal with the extra influx of traffic and heavy trucks from this. Like I said, I'm not opposed to it. I just want to know what the long-term plan is for all this development of different industries and everything that I think is a good idea, but what's the long-term game plan here? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Before I ask anyone representing that project to answer that question, are there any other questions that we could go ahead and put on their Rolodex of possible questions so they can just answer them all comprehensively? Hearing no other questions, would somebody representing that project like to respond to the question concerning traffic and safety?
Kimberly Sapp, representing Ryan Companies, U.S. There is a traffic study that was done for the project. The number of semis, I believe, is going to be limited probably about 10 in a 24-hour period, so it's not a 300 semis coming in like you would expect. So, I mean, the traffic study's been done and found that that US 27 can handle the additional traffic that's anticipated by this project.
All right, thank you, Ms. Sapp.
I'll also tell you that our long-term plan for the Lake Placid area has cobbled together a bypass effectively that is parallel to 27. It begins down on 70 and runs up north of this. This is an element that connects the two together. So this is part of that long-range plan.
Well, thank you. If there is no other public comment or questions, I will bring it back to the board and wait to entertain a motion. Whoever's controlling the computer, would you get us back to the screen so we get the language correct?
I move to forward hearing number LPC P-06-37-30-010, ordinance 2411 to the town council with recommendation of approval.
A second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Eva, please call the roll.
Dr. Oxer,
Yes.
Chris Duncan,
Yes.
Gary Freeman,
Yes.
Donald Clarke,
Yes.
Dustin Woods.
Yes.
Motion options.
Let me turn it back over to Mr. Harris for the second part of this conversation.
This is the LPTC 24.06 RE, or rather RZ, ordinance 24-12, to rezone the same property you just considered. If you'd go to the, there you go, let's go to the map. No, let's go back to the site plan. Again, this is for the distribution center. The ordinance that we have previously circulated referenced a 12-foot path. That's, needs to be changed to a 10-foot path. The reason is the state has gone recently from 10 to 12, and the path from the Lee County to Polk County requires 12 feet, so we were trying to be consistent with that, but the county engineer told the applicant the county regs are 10 feet for a path. It's in a county right-of-way. I didn't know that. She didn't know that. And it's really too late to change. So my recommendation is go with the 10-foot path because that's what they were told early in this process.
Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, I'd like to open it for public comment. Also hearing none, let me bring it back to the board to entertain a motion. Would you make the motions available on the screen for us?
I move to forward hearing number LPTC.24.06RZ, ordinance 2024-12 to the town council with a recommendation of approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Eva, please call the roll.
Chris Duncan,
Yes.
Donald Clarke,
Yes.
Dr. Oxer,
Yes.
Gary Freeman,
Yes.
Dustin Woods.
Yes. Just for the record and the sake of minutes, I know that the ordinance numbers ought to clear it up, but we had agreed to invert the agenda, and we did, but we treated these two ordinances in their original order. So we dealt with the thing as a whole in a different spot, but we spoke of 24-11 before 24-12 for the sake of our discussion. All right, so that brings us to ordinance 2023-03, the Grand Isles of Lake June. Thank you, Mr. Harris, for facilitating that part of the conversation. Ms. Rydell, would you take it away from here as it relates to item A?
I will. My name is Dana Riddell. I'm the town planner for the town of Lake Placid. Before us tonight, before I launch into this, let's go ahead over ex parte communication for this case. So this would be if you had any conversations, discussions, or interactions with any member of the public regarding this case. We'll start with Dr. Oxer.
No.
Thank you.
I have none.
Thank you.
Would it be only ex parte communication if any has happened since the last time we talked about it?
Well, I told Bert he could go.
Okay,
So, no. But I think, if you want to just share it one more time.
All the rest of them are on the record,
Okay, yeah, they're on the record.
related to previous conversations.
And it's for the benefit of the applicant that they have this information. So that information is available to them. Thank you.
And the only one that I spoke to as it relates to tonight's discussion is Realtor Debbie McCullough about some of the housing sizes. And
Thank you.
No.
Mr. Clarke?
Oh. I
Mr.
thought you were
Freeman?
looking at me. No.
And no. And Mr. Ramos? No? Okay. Thank you. So we've all seen this case a couple times. It's been tabled by the local planning agency back in May, and then it was continued a couple times, and it went to town council, and this will be your recommendation to town council before the second reading to town council next week, which would ultimately lead to its adoption if it is approved. The property here is located on the west side of Catfish Creek Road and just a little south of West Interlake Boulevard. In relation to the town, you can see it's on the west side of the town and on the east side of Lake June in winter. The existing future land use is low estate residential with conditions. And the existing zoning is a mix of Highlands County agricultural and Town of Lake Placid agricultural. Tonight, we're not discussing future land use. We've already voted on that with the local planning agency. We're only discussing zoning. When it comes back to town council next week, it will cover both zoning and future land use. Since the last time you've seen this particular case, there's been some changes to the site plan. Most of the recreation was moved internal to the site, or the way this site plan is oriented, I want to say north, but it's actually on the east side of the site toward the entrances is where you'll see most of the recreation now. They did choose to leave the pool, community center, parking area down there on the lake portion. They removed the ramp that came up, the boat ramp that came up in the first hearing. They widened, since the last time we talked to them, they widened their lots, I think to 80 foot, Brandon? Yes, okay, he can confirm. And the biggest question that town council had the last time that they met was actually the minimum living space. So in the conditions of the ordinance that you all have in your packet, there was a question at the town council meeting because the site plan said one thing and the ordinance said another, and the applicant found a middle ground, I believe, because they originally stated that they would have 2,100 square feet for minimum living area, and then the inconsistency was somewhere else it said there would be 1,800 square feet. There was a desire to see the larger houses in proximity to Lake June Point subdivision, which has larger house footprints. So the applicant is proposing to require a minimum footprint of 2,100 square feet with a minimum living space of 1,800 square feet. So that means if somebody, no matter what, the footprint has to be a minimum of 2,100 square feet, and a portion of that could be garage, RV storage, boat storage, something that's under air, I'm sorry, not on, the minimum living space is under air. The garage, the cars, everywhere where you would park those would be not under air, and that's not considered living space. Just in case you were wondering how that's determined, it's really by what's under air conditioning. But aside from that, there haven't been many substantial changes aside from a lot of changes to the actual site plan itself. The overall goal of the ordinance remains the same. They're requesting 97 single-family homes, and the agent is here for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Rydell. Any questions or comments from the board? Thank you all for your patience in the process. I know this is certainly took a lot longer than any of us initially expected. Hearing no comment from the board, let me open for public comment as it relates to what's being presented.
You have the documents that we signed? Is that what you're referring to?
Ms. Rydell, do you know what he's referring to?
Documents you sent, request to speak? Okay.
You're referring to request to speak citizens not on the agenda here? These would be in the event that there's something that you wanted to bring up that was not already a part of our discussion agenda tonight. Since this is a public hearing, you have your opportunity whenever you would like. Both of them would be limited to 3 minutes anyways. This just gives people the opportunity to say, hey, we need to talk about this other thing over here. With that said, just a reminder, public comment will be limited to 3 minutes to make sure we have plenty of time to hear from everyone that would like to speak. I don't have an alarm on here, so I'm just going to have to be the alarm.
My name is Chester Heath. I live at 588 Sunset Point Drive in Lake Placid. This subdivision is directly adjacent to our homes. I believe that the concept of zoning is to get adjacent properties to be consistent, compliant, and compatible with the existing structures nearby. These homes are considerably less expensive and less valuable, if you want, than the homes that they're adjacent to. I don't think there's consistency at all. And why do we have zoning laws in the first place if they're going to be bypassed just as soon as somebody can make a profit? We have a small town here with a small town atmosphere. I'd love to see it stay that way. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You set a great example, 58 seconds. And so well said.
I'm Lee Weeks. I live at 766 Sunset Point. 3 doors down from the pool. It's the proposed right now. I'm experienced in development. I'm a technical advisor in many communities, up to 3,000 doors in the past, built resorts and golf communities. This is, the pool is going to be built in such a way that it's down by the lake, and it's going to become party central. If you think they're going to have supervision in this development, especially with the size homes that they're going to have, they're not. It's going to be a wreck out on the lake, and that's 3 doors down from where I live, and many of the counterparts here also live, and it's ridiculous because you know what's going to happen at night. Hell, in normal neighborhoods that we develop, the teenagers go down at night, nobody is down there to stop them, the music is playing, it goes crazy wild, the police have to come, and you're putting it on a lake where people have boats, alcohol, and everything else going on. This is ridiculous, and you need to really, really consider this thought process. Also, originally when this was discussed, there was an 8-foot wall that would separate our development from their development. What happened to the 8-foot wall? Cost. They're looking at it now and they're saying, oh, we're not going to make the kind of money we thought we were going to make, and now we're not going to put up the fence that we said we were going to put. And I say wall because it was a wall. Now it's supposedly around the, everybody thinks it's great. We're going to have a fence around the pool that vegetation in 5 years will hopefully grow up and cover. It's not the same. You have to have a fence around a pool just for safety reasons. So if I were doing this, and I have done this for many communities, I would not impede on everyone else on the lakefront. You've got 97 homes that are going to come down to one small area. What happens when people go down to the beach walk at a resort that I've developed? They spread out. They're going to be right in front of our homes and stuff. This is not very well thought out and very much not appreciated. One last thing, this property has eagles. You can't develop during the nesting season for eagles. It has turtles, and it's a corridor for any of the animals on that side of the lake that have a place with coverage to come down and get water and get to the lake. So I'm talking to Florida Wildlife. I'm going to not make it a secret. I'm not happy about it, and it needs to be reconsidered, and I'd appreciate your consideration for it.
Thank you, Mr. Weeks. Sir, you can just come on, get nearby.
Pam Pinterest, 12373 Lost Lake Drive, Lake Placid, Greater Lake Placid area. I think this is a great project. great development. You're under 2 units per acre, healthy living. Yes, the homes may not be as big as Lake June Point, but the whole 55 acres isn't on Lake June. It doesn't have lake access. One particular little point does. But I went to the town council meeting last month, and when this was reviewed, they have to pay either $100,000 or $150,000 into amenities, park, recreation. They provide their own. I've been following this since like February, April, and every time Lake June Point or concerned neighbors bring something up, I've seen that their side being accommodating and trying to work out something reasonable. I think this is one of the good things that I've seen coming before Lake Placid, so I'm in favor of it. Thank you.
Ms. Rydell, does it meet all of the requirements in your department?
It does.
How many homes in Lake June Point are not on the lake?
That's a good question, but I would think at least half, because half of the subdivision's on the other side of the road. And I will say the one development standard that's a little subjective is this is, for all intents and purposes, will consider the recreation on the lake a lakeside park. And this kind of came up during our first local planning agency meeting where the code says it shall be properly buffered or significantly buffered, but there was no standard established for what that buffer would be. So I do think it's worth discussion as to exactly what they plan to propose. My understanding is a certain amount of landscaping, and the applicant, I've reached out, the applicant provided a little bit more information on that I'll have to include in the package for town council. But it's going to be a landscape berm, and then we're working on
Is that in lieu of the 8-foot wall that we're talking about, a landscape berm?
So it might not necessarily be a berm, because a berm would be building up the land as well, but it would be a landscape buffer, and the applicant is requesting to put up an acoustical wall along the pool area, not the entire length of the property, but just where the pool is, so that if there's a lot of screaming. I've had complaints in the past where someone might be teaching pool lessons in a pool, and you can hear it because you hear the echo off the water and things like that. So walls like this are meant to mitigate sound.
You guys that live in Lake June Point, how many non-lakefront lots? Non-lakefront lots. 86. Charlie? 86. There's 86 non-lakefront? 86 on the lake. How many non-lakefront lots? Well, the point I'm getting at is, if you have 90 non-lakefront lots and you have one lakefront lot that is your park that those people have access to the lake through, that's not much different than what you're seeing in this development.
There's no pool. And no one uses it, quite frankly.
We're not going to have back and forth from the board to the audience. So did you get your question answered at least?
Well, yes, and my point was, if there's 80 lots that aren't on the lake and they have access through one point into Lake June, that's not a lot different than having however many houses are in this place having access through one lot on Lake June. Now, I understand your concern about the noise and stuff like that. I'm sure whoever's building it will work with you to make the noise mitigation better, but more housing.
In just a moment, sir, are you proposing that as a question to the community?
No, I was just
Or
pointing out the irony.
Okay. Let me invite this gentleman who's been waiting to come and speak.
Thank you. I remember speaking at the last meeting that you had regarding zoning on this project, and forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but I'm
So could
against...
you just
my
state your name and
Art
address
Davin,
for the,
768 Sunset Point.
what was your name, sir? I'm sorry.
Art Davin.
Art Davin.
I'm against the allowing the zoning change necessary for this. I believe I have a unique experience to add to this. In 2016 to 2019, I was the president of the HOA for Lake June West townhomes on the northwest side of the lake. Like this proposal, it is multiple homes with a relatively small access to the lake. We had 20 homes, and we had considerably more shoreline. During that point, it was very difficult to enforce HOA rules. It was relatively unsafe. It was impossible to control renters, unattended watercraft, trash, noise, alcohol consumption. That was essentially why we moved and why 5 other people also moved out of there. That is how Grand Isles is going to live. That's what it's going to be like. Because you have 97 homes, hundreds of people, and the potential for renters, you're going to exponentially increase all of those problems. You're going to have a very narrow access to the lake. The lake is very shallow right there, which is going to invite floating parties. People are going to invite their friends, and they're going to show up with their boats and leave them on the beach. I've seen it. It is going to happen. I brought a prop. This is a modern waterproof Bluetooth speaker. You can hear this almost a quarter mile away when it's cranked all the way up. Imagine if that was 100 feet from your property, okay? And then if it was just the people in Lake June Point, that would be bad enough that have to endure this. But it's the people that use the lake. There's thousands of people that come and use this lake, and I watch them. And that is a very high-speed area in front of Grand Isles. There's jet skiers, wakeboarders, everything. And that's what, this whole thing is going to be a cluster and a navigational hazard for people in their boats. And it's going to attract law enforcement as well, I guarantee it. Just like the sandbar on the other side of the lake. The homes around the lake and the people that own those properties are a natural barrier to protect the lake, the environment, and the way that we use the lake and experience it. When people come here from out of state, out of town, wherever, and spend a lot of money to stay in here and use this lake and fish, this is going to disrupt it. You know, and all of the things that you consider when you look at zoning, you know, and we all know the names, compatibility and consistency. But harmony is really the most important. Will this development be in harmony with what's already there? And will it enhance the experience of people that love this lake? And I say it won't. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davin. And I'd like to say how much I appreciate everybody being conscientious of the time allotments. We're still open for public comment. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Ray Royce, 113 Water's Edge Lane here in Lake Placid. I come before you, again, I'm going to wear 2 hats. One is in my Economic Development Commission hat. Had a series of meetings with the principals of this group for many months, a while back, and they're proposing a healthy living-based community. They're proposing the type of people, again, that the business community of Highlands County has said, or in Lake Placid in particular, how do we attract and bring these people in that are going to spend money in our businesses? The people that are putting this together have also indicated, historically, I have not spoke to them recently, that they are also interested in making investments themselves in other businesses in our town. So this community will attract the demographic that the small businesses of Lake Placid are seeking to have come to this area. They've negotiated through the PD process to try to, the greatest extent possible, alleviate the concerns expressed by the folks in Lake June Point. To Dr. Oxer's point, And I, at one time, my family owned 6 properties in Lake June Point. We only own 3 now, 1 house and 2 vacant lots. I lived in Lake June Point myself for a number of years, and I watched the lakeside park we have there. To my knowledge, neither when I was the HOA president or any time during all the years I lived there, I never had a single party at the Lake June Park. So I don't know that this is all of a sudden going to become this super attractor and that's where everyone's going to decide to park their boat and party. It never happened with Lake June Point. We understand the NIMBY concept of I've come here, let's close the gates and have no one else. But that's why you all are going through this PD process, to alleviate that. And so, you know, the zoning does not require that if you have one community, that the new community next to it has to be equal or larger or grander or measured for some reason in property value, home values. That's not how our system works. You have the responsibility of making sure that there's a proper transition. It'd be inappropriate to put an industrial site next to Lake June Point. It might be inappropriate to put a very high-density apartment building next to Lake June Point. Having the type of development that's being proposed and protected through the PD process that's very exacting, exactly why Lake Placid adopted the PD process, and exactly why they have negotiated through that process. So I think what you gentlemen, and ultimately the Lake Placid Town Council has to decide is, do you want to attract new people with disposable income to our area to support the local businesses or not? And if we don't, and you want to have big sand fields, then that's one thing, but then don't ask either the Economic Development Office or be able to explain to the small business owners, no, we precluded new people with disposable income from moving to our area, because that's what this is all about. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Marlene Barger in Lake June Point. I want to make a couple of clarifications. Nobody's complaining about not having people move into the town, so I want to negate that. Nobody's arguing about that. The other point I want to argue is relative to people coming ashore. Multiple times, I've lived in Lake June Point now for 20 years, and I've seen multiple times, even on waterfront lots, boats come in and people start picnicking and partying. What we do then is we go down and we ask them to leave because it's private property. We've had the same thing happen at our park. We've had people show up there, dock their boats, come in and use our pavilion. We've had to ask them to leave. So after a while, the word gets out that it is protected and it is private property. The difference is we have eyes on target all the time. With regard to the waterfront property, and they want to put a swimming pool there, if you recall, back in 2008, a development was approved that had 45 homes, and they were not allowed, and the LPA and the town council all agreed they could have no recreation activities on that lake. And when we say now we could have 300 people down there, the question that we have, and most of us have, has to do with the pool, because it does create a lot of noise. You put a lot of kids in it, and you will have noise, and I can testify to that from having experience in that. A couple things I want to point out. We did have a provision and a plan given to us from the developer, and it shows the 8-foot wall. Part of the development, I think, also calls for, and the county code calls for, a 20-foot buffer around the property. There is no 20-foot buffer. I want to go back to compatibility. We're not questioning the land use. What we're questioning is the compatibility. If you look at the actual measurements where they've clustered homes together, they're putting in 3.66 homes per acre. That sort of distorts the whole plan of 3 homes per acre. So if you're going to keep it within land use of 3 homes per acre, then it ought to be that way when you cluster them together. They changed it from 2,100 square feet under air to 1,800 square feet. That's not compatible. In Lake June Point, actually in Lake June Point, I measured out the 3 phases of Lake June Point, and I divided it by the lands that the the properties that are there, and it actually comes out to 1.1 home per acre, not 3.66. Even though our land use is 3 homes per acre, we are now going to put a request in to take it to what it actually is, and that's 2 homes per acre. I also measured all the homes going down Catfish Creek Road. There is nothing that's compatible with 3 homes per acre. They're all at least 1/2 acre. Then I measured going up Interlake Boulevard. Again, the homes that are there are 1/2 acre. So if you're going to have it in compatibility with the surrounding area, then it should be truly 3 homes per acre. That's the point that I make. Now, I think we have a letter from the property owner, the waterfront property home next to it. Did you all get a copy of that? Okay, so you have that and you have those views, so I don't need to repeat that.
Ms. Barger, excuse me, I need to interrupt. We're at the 3.5-minute mark.
I have a letter from a resident
All right.
in Lake June Point.
Would you like me, we all have it in front of us right here.
No, this is a different one.
Oh, are you standing in proxy, it sounds like?
Yes.
All right. I will.
I can give you copies of this if you prefer.
I'm sorry, say that again,
I
please.
can give you copies of this as well. And I'll provide you with copies of, as well, I'll provide you with copies of what we were given with the 8-foot wall.
Feel free to provide us with whatever
Okay,
you'd
I'll
like to.
provide
Yes,
that
ma'am.
to you. And this one came from Stephen Collins, and he is opposed to it, and he's concerned about the traffic and community, but I'll let you guys take a look at
Thank you.
this.
Is that
if
also a
there's
Lake
an
June resident?
opposition. Pardon?
Is that also a Lake June resident?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, please. Let me just pause public comment for just a second. No, come on. After you're finished. The purpose being I want to give, if the, I recognize there's been a lot of discussion between Lake June and the applicant and agent and such. So I want to give the agent an opportunity, or the applicant an opportunity to respond if they would like, but I also understand perhaps y'all have already gone round and round about some of these things and certainly don't feel like you need to, but let me pause public comment for just a second, sir, and let me give the applicant an opportunity to respond if they would like. Thank you. Not yet, no ma'am.
For the record, Brandon Craig on behalf of the applicant. And just to address some of the concerns that I've heard tonight, these are concerns that we've heard for probably close to a year now. And we have negotiated with the residents of Lake June Point. There have been substantial changes to the site plan. Most of the early on concerns were, and even tonight, have still been the waterfront area. When we first came before the LPA, our plan and envision of the waterfront area was substantially more dense. There were activity, there were ball courts down there. Most of that has now been moved up along Catfish Creek Road to get it as far away from the residents of Lake June Point as we can. There have been numerous voices of the concerns of the level of noise down by the water. At one point there was a conversation about a wall that ran in between Lake June Point and this property down by the clubhouse. That has been removed from the site plan, and it's mainly because be careful what you wish for. You don't want to look at a big concrete wall. Number 2, air doesn't flow through a concrete wall. And number 3, we can accomplish the same things by doing the heavy landscape buffer that we're proposing. And most of the noise concerns have stemmed around the pool. So not only are we doing the heavy landscape buffer along there, but we're also doing the 8-foot rock wall for acoustics to keep the acoustics from transferring from the pool into Lake June Point. I heard allegations that this is going to be a party spot. This is not open to the general public. This is a private gated community. If the rules will be enforced by the HOA of this community, This is not a party spot. And then we've also removed the boat ramp to try to reduce boat traffic. Our boat dock only holds 3 boats. This is not a spot that's geared towards seeing how many members of the general public you can put down here. It's not for the general public, it's private. So those were most of the concerns I heard tonight, and I just wanted to have the opportunity to address those.
Just one more thing, please. I manage communities. If you
Just again, a name for the record.
Lee Weeks, 766 Sunset Point. I manage communities and large developments and build large developments. If you don't have supervision, as in police and very good security, anything on the water and any pool that's especially away, like it is in this particular case, from with no eyes on target, it will be party central. And it's already been explained how it already happened on the lake before by my neighbor Art. So I just want to refute that. It's not going to be that way, especially with a pool there.
Thanks,
Thank
sir. I was also able to gather a little bit of information from the county clerk's office as it relates to living square footage. With the reduction of it being to 1,800 square feet under air, if I understand correctly, try to get the sizing right. According to the Highlands County Clerk's office, that is the same minimum for Lake June Point, whether it be 1-story or 2-story, 1,800 square feet is the minimum. I recognize some of those houses are bigger, but that's not the requirement, just for the record. Yes, sir.
My point's a little bit different. You want my name again?
Yes, sir, so we know on the record who's speaking.
Chet Heath, 588 Sunset Point Drive.
Thank you.
Lake Placid. This last weekend, we had a terrible car accident. 9 people were injured. One of them was a child. Last I heard, that child was still in critical condition. We also had a house basically down the street from that area burned to the ground. We had fire protection, but it didn't arrive in time. So the man lost $1.4 million in his property. I submit that maybe we ought to be a little more careful about allowing development until we have placed centralized police force, centralized fire department, such that there is a response time in the order of 2 minutes, like it is in most towns. I'm not so upset by this community and its density, but it does bother me if people get hurt. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Marlene Barger, one quick clarification. We no longer have an 1,800 square foot minimum. That's history. Our minimum now is 2,500 square feet, just to clarify.
All right, thank you.
Okay. And Dustin, you have a question for me earlier?
I don't think I did, no, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I'm trying to take good notes, though.
Ken LeBlanc. I lived in Lake June Point for 6 years. I was president of the association there, so I'm real familiar with Lake June Point. Also familiar with that lake access lot. Had practically nobody ever using it. When it was used, it was probably mostly my kids, and that was just occasionally. Dustin, but you're in Water's Edge. How many people are at your lake access lot on any given day? Almost nobody ever, that I've seen. So, to think that just because you have all these homes there and they have a lake access lot, that it's going to be all the time a party, that's just not realistic, right? That's just not going to be the case. And to expect that somebody is developing this land and they have a lake access lot and they're not going to use it as an amenity for their community is just not realistic. I'm a builder, I'm a developer, so I understand where they're coming from when they want to do it. I also understand, Lake June Point, but, this community is not cheap. This is not affordable housing. Is it as expensive as Lake June Point? No, but that should be a good thing in Lake June Point's mind because they got the most expensive houses around, and these people aren't going to compete when it comes to resale with them because they're half-acre lots, and big houses. And these are smaller houses, but We got to realize that in this day and age, affordability matters, you know? So it doesn't do any good to create a bunch of million-dollar neighborhoods that you can't ever get people in because you got too many million-dollar neighborhoods and not enough people with $1 million, you know? So I think it's what they're trying to do as a developer is practical. And they've made a lot of concessions. They moved a lot of things away from the water and stuff. And I think it was, the property representative was saying, careful what you wish for. Yeah, I mean, these concrete walls, you know, typically they're separating a neighborhood from a highway, not a neighborhood from a neighborhood. Neighborhoods are usually separated from neighborhoods with heavy landscape buffers. Wind does not go through a wall like that, you know, so, you know, I would not want to have my house next to, you know, a big concrete wall like that, you know, and and anyways, I just think that they've made a lot of concessions. I think it's a reasonable project now. I think at some point, you know, I think Ray had said, NIMBY just doesn't work. I mean, that's not a proper planning method, you know, not my backyard. I mean, we have to, you know, work with developers to do reasonable, practical development that will actually be successful, you know, so that we don't end up with a bunch of empty developments that go bankrupt, right? And I think this development makes sense. It just, you know, is where it needs to be at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let me just ask the board real quick. Sir, give me just a second. You, board, you've heard a variety of different information. Do you have any questions or comments thus far before we hear perhaps one last public comment? Is there anyone else, as it stands right now, that has intentions of providing public comment? I'd like to know ahead of time. Ma'am, do you? Okay, would you, since you have not shared yet, would you go ahead and share? Is there anyone else? As soon as she's done with her 3 minutes, we'd like to hear from you again, sir, and then we'll close public comment, give you guys an opportunity to deliberate or propose a motion. All right, yes, ma'am, please begin.
My name is Rosemary Heath, and I live at 588 Sunset Point Drive. I have a report. It's a comprehensive plan for 2030. I'm told there's a new one coming out. Why do we have these plans? On page 3, it has a distribution of categories. First is rural landscape, then it's low estate, then it's suburb residential, and then low density residential. That's 4 category difference. Why do we have a planning committee? Why do we have a comprehensive plan? If you're going to go from one category to the 4th category instead of having a breakdown from the 1st to the 2nd to the 3rd and the 4th, I thought you keep your high density close to the town, not furthest away from the town. And we're not doing that at all. And then going back to the compatibility, the consistency, the conformity, how is there harmony without conflict with this subdivision, with the 2 subdivisions? How are they consistent? How are they unchanging in nature, standard, or effect? There's supposed to be a match. Where's the match? How is it adhering to the same principles and form? These 2, nothing is compliant. Nothing is stated that is similar, the same. Conformity. This is where your zoning law comes. It doesn't conform. It's 4 distributions away. I don't know what else to say. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to mention, they have a horrible situation across the lake from us where every weekend boats come together, they tie together, and they party. This is in the lake already happening, and now you're going to add another 97 homes? This is just so unfair to the people that are there, the people on the lake. It's not safe. And there's no one going to be patrolling the lake. Who's going to see who's speeding, who's staying overnight? This is going to be a mess. And it's going to hurt everyone. And it doesn't make this town of Lake Placid the cute little town that it was and was supposed to continue to be. It just changes everything. It's very sad that no one cares.
Thank you. Ms. Rydell, have we had any complaints from the people that live just south of this new development?
I have not had any contact with those property owners.
So nobody's come forward from that whole row of houses down there?
Just south is a vacant property, but no, I haven't heard from that property owner. And then I think a little further south down Catfish Creek Road, yes, there's more residences, but no, I haven't heard from any of those property owners as well.
Mr. Davin?
Thank you. I just wanted to rebut what the gentleman prior to me said about it being unrealistic, about it being a party zone. When you combine renters in a mass scale, okay, people rent specifically to get access to the lake, okay? So they are going to be partying and they're going to be on the lake. I would expect nothing else. I've watched it happen with my own eyes, okay? And the scale that you have here is immense. Also, this project, we wouldn't even be here discussing it if it wasn't for that access to the lake. It is the access to the lake which makes the whole thing turn on and start. If it didn't have the access to the lake, no one would build 97 homes on that piece of sand, okay? So that's what we're talking about. That's where all the activity is going to be. That's where the party is going to be. It's going to be on that finger of property to the south, or to the west, rather. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Craig, I'm a little confused. Is this a rental development, or is it a?
I was going to ask a few questions, because I did read something about it in the document.
It's not, no, it's not a rental.
Is that, I saw that there was already criteria for the HOA, some things in there. What does it include as it relates to rentals, or does it include anything?
It doesn't include anything at this point, but it's not being created to be a Airbnb community or VRBO or anything like that. But there's no discussion on addressing that in the covenants and restrictions.
Okay. Is that, in going back before town council, where are we at in the PD process on this?
The final approval would be this upcoming Tuesday, November 12th, because of the holiday.
Okay.
And Marlene Barger, one final comment, couple. Number one, the developer has worked very cooperatively with Lake June Point, and I would suggest that if you have 1,800 square feet as your minimum, with what it was initially was 2,100 square feet, they're talking about a 2-story home at 1,800 square feet, it's going to look like a townhouse. That's not compatible with anything around it. And secondly, the pool is the problem. Move the pool to the center of the community, because there's plenty of room up there to put it right in the center. Parents could watch their kids. The noise goes away. It lessens the opportunity for a party central, and that's what it was. And when they had the development in 2008, everything was moved to the center of the community, and people were happy, and it was blessed, and Lake June Point was happy with it. So I would suggest if they put the pool in the center and go back to 2,100 square feet, then, it would be a very nice community, and people would be very happy with it. Thank you.
Thank you for the public comment. I'm going to bring it back to the board and town staff at this point.
I did just have the one comment that we specifically worded it that it would be a 2,100 square foot footprint to mean the footprint of the home has to be a minimum of 2,100 square feet, and it can't be broken up into 1-story and 2-story, like 1,000 foot on the bottom, 800 on top. The footprint has to be 2,100 square feet.
Understood. Yeah, thank you for that clarification. A minimum of 1,800 under air.
Correct.
Right. Any questions or comments from the board?
One more comment as well. Our comprehensive plan encourages clustering. And when we get into downtown areas, the maximum density in downtown areas is 12 dwelling units per acre. The maximum density in undeveloped areas outside of the downtown area is 3 dwelling units per acre. The applicant is requesting 1.76 dwelling units per acre.
I'm certainly hearing a lot of the concerns, and I recognize with the neighborhood coming in right next to you, there is a whole lot of unknown, and certainly some founded concerns there. I know that, and I appreciate the time and energy you guys have put into it. I will state, though, I won't make a motion. I'll leave that up to the board, but I'm favorable to this coming to our community, having some a development like this generate remarkable tax revenue for the community, that not being the primary reason, but we do need quality housing in our community. And these are very nice homes that by no means are affordable housing. This is going to be a group of very hardworking, mildly successful people that are going to be able to afford these kind of homes, and I would expect that their expectations of their own living standards perhaps will be a little more than what the area of concern is. That folks that are making that kind of money don't have a lot of time to be doing a lot of partying. I do hear those concerns, however, and I think my recommendation to this board is I would recommend approval of town council with consideration that town council consider perhaps requiring the HOA to establish a rental agreement, rental boundaries. I know that being a resident of Water's Edge, as we've eliminated any type of short-term rentals in our neighborhood. It's a minimum of 6 months or more, so that seasonal people can obviously rent, and those folks are obviously more serious when they're here, because this is part of their life. But there's no weekend rentals, no Airbnbs, no race week rentals, none of that stuff. And it keeps that riffraff out, only, serious users only. I certainly hear the concern about the pool and the parties, not parties, but just some of the noise. I do think that an appropriate buffer is going to mitigate that significantly. I recognize that for the majority of the neighborhood, that pool's not going to bother you at all. But even with a significant buffer, there's a couple houses butted up to it that you're probably going to hear a little bit of racket from time to time, especially on the weekends and in the summer, because this is probably going to be a demographic that has some kids, some teenagers. I perhaps would even recommend that in our approval or recommendation that we ask town council to recommend to the agent possibly moving that pool into the middle of the neighborhood as well. However, those are just a few thoughts for you guys as you prepare to make a motion one way or the other. Would you,
Mr. Rydell, can you put the page back up with the motions?
motion page? And I say some of that knowing we have some council members present, so regardless of whether it lands in the motion or not.
I move to recommend that town council approve hearing number LPTC.24.003 Romeo Zulio, ordinance 2024-03 to town council on second reading with the following changes. Consideration of an HOA, consideration of some rental restrictions,
and if the water retention will allow it, to move the pool inside the neighborhood.
There you go.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Eva, please call the roll.
Dr. Oxer,
Yes.
Chris Duncan,
Yes.
Gary Freeman,
Yes.
Donald Clarke,
Yes.
Dustin Woods.
Yes. All right. That concludes the business for our local planning agency meeting tonight. Now we switch hats and we become the Board of Adjustments. I believe those citizens not on the agenda already spoke. I'm assuming you didn't have different business. Is that correct, Mr. Weeks and Mrs. Barger? Okay, thank you guys. Thank you all for being here tonight. Now we'll switch hats for one item of business for the Board of Adjustments. Do we need a brief recess for a bathroom, or are we ready to run? All right, let's go. All right, Ms. Rydell.
Thank you. Playing musical chairs, in case anyone was wondering, that is indeed the coldest seat in the room. So bear with me just a moment while I settle in here, please.
I think we do need to officially open the meeting.
Okay. If we can open
It's a
up.
separate meeting, so we have to open and do another roll call.
Okay, so we need to begin by calling the roll?
Yes.
Are there minutes to approve?
There are.
Okay, so let's start from the top.
So, Dustin Woods,
Here.
Jack Edgemon, Donald Clarke.
Here.
Dr. Oxer,
Here.
Gary Freeman,
Yes,
Chris
yes.
Duncan,
Here.
Alex Ramos.
Here. With that said, let's begin by the approval of the consent agenda. I'll wait to entertain a motion. Do so by saying so moved.
So moved.
All right. Do I hear a second?
Yes, I'll second it.
Motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion? Eva, please call the roll.
Chris Duncan,
Yes.
Gary Freeman,
Yes.
Dr. Oxer,
Yes.
Donald Clarke,
Yes.
Dustin Wood.
Yes. All right, let me turn it over to Ms. Rydell, Town Planner, for the Board of Adjustments discussion.
Thank you. I'm about to launch into a new case, into our Board of Adjustment. This is also a quasi-judicial hearing, so we need to do ex parte communication, and we need to ask any agents or anyone offering expert witness testimony to also raise their right hand and be sworn into the record. So is Mr. LeBlanc here? Okay, great. So we'll go ahead and both raise our hands.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Thank you, right from the pastor's mouth. All right.
Well done. Well done. That's the fun part. I've always wanted to do that.
I'll let you do it every time.
Please.
Eva will be okay with it. So this particular case is owned by Ashworth Family Holdings LLC, which is under the ownership, under the care of, there we go, CO, that's exactly what that means, thank you, of Ken LeBlanc. That hearing number is not accurate. On the screen, you'll see an aerial map. This is showing that the property is located just south of the existing South Florida State College School campus. It's on the west side of US 27 and also just south of Interlake Boulevard. To the south of the property is East Royal Palm Street, and to the west is Spruce Ave. This gives you a few more landmarks if you'd like to look at it from that view as well. This is the location map. I wanted to make sure that we showed, it can get really confusing when you're looking at a property and we're talking about building 2 homes here, and it only has one property number or parcel ID number. It does have 2 lots. You can see the orange lines signify lot lines, so it's just parceled together for a tax bill. We have lots 1 and 2. The applicant is proposing to build 2 single-family residential homes on one on each lot. This is the floor plan that they're proposing. This floor plan, it's hard to read, but the living area is 1,110 square feet, and this goes back to the conversation we were having about living versus non-living area. The total home would be 1,270 square feet. Motion options are available on the screen. You will see that I did recommend denial, and this is because the mechanism that is being used. So if you were able to read your staff report, you'll see that there were 2 sets of findings. One set of findings would determine if this would materially injure anyone or be a danger to the health, safety, welfare of the community, or prevent airflow, or increase the risk of fire, and it complied with all of those findings. This reduction met those findings and exceeded them above and beyond. However, there's a second set of findings that are required, and this set of findings is what we use to determine if a variance is the appropriate tool. So in this case, or in all cases when it comes to a variance, you have to prove that there was a hardship with the property. And so the hardship is not necessarily this person. When you think of a hardship, most of us, our brain immediately goes to maybe someone's financial situation or someone's living situation or life situation. But when it comes to a variance, a hardship has to be a hardship with the land itself. So that means the slope has to be so steep you can't build the house the way you would like to build it. The lot lines are so incredibly irregular that you can't possibly fit the home. Things that would have to happen with the land in order to be considered a hardship. So in this case, even though the property or the request doesn't create any material dangers or issues, it's just not the right tool. So we also have the applicant here, Mr. Ken LeBlanc, and he can speak to that. Until then, I'll go ahead and turn it back over to the chair.
Thank you. Just, you said this is this, well, never mind. To translate a little bit of what Ms. Rydell was saying when it comes to our terms and Mr. LeBlanc's terms, he has two ways to accomplish this goal if he wants to get this variance. This is the easier way, is come to us, pay the money, be here tonight, get the variance, build the houses, and then move on. What Dana's talking about is right now in the code, in order to do that, you have to prove some sort of, the other option is to prove some sort of hardship to the land, which he would have to go through some sort of planned development process. I don't remember, what's the exact term for that?
So this is the process that requires a hardship to the land, but if we went through, yes, a planned development, it's a longer process, it's more expensive, and it's specifically for creating developments that are unique and not covered by our code.
Yeah. Doing just a little looking around, we spend plenty of time downtown. I know all of you guys do. Many of the homes aren't 1,500 square feet, and a lot of that's because they were built before we developed a code. And I don't know that our downtown area could really hold too many 1,500 plus square foot houses. We're getting up into that category, this development we just started talking about. Those are pretty sizable, expensive homes. I think by the letter of the law here, we're talking about something that would require a denial of the variance, but I think the spirit of the town leaves plenty of room for us to consider a approval of the variance, just based on what we would like to see in the downtown area, and if homes like what's presented on the paper here are suitable for that, are good for the neighbors, beautify the downtown area, provide. Now we're getting into the affordable housing category, which is hopefully far south of $400,000, which I think that whatever we were, the last development is going to be pretty pricey up in there. So that's a little bit of what we're talking about here. Did I misrepresent anything, Ms. Rydell, from just a functional standpoint?
No, very good, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments for Ms. Rydell before I give Mr. LeBlanc an opportunity to comment if necessary?
Can you put the picture back up of the properties?
I think the hardship is in the width of the lot. I mean, honestly, to put a 1,500 square foot house on that lot is not reasonable.
Do we have any idea what size house number 3 is here? Well, that's a long one.
It's just a long shotgun
Including,
house.
if I recall, I'm drawing off memory, I think including non-living area, it's 1,500 square feet.
Okay.
I will say, I forgot to mention that one of the things our code explicitly says is that I can't find that it's consistent with the specific findings because you can't grant a variance based on the land being non-conforming. So also, just so you know, that's part of what this is. These lots were platted and recorded in the 1920s. They were approved by the town council at that time. And then later on in the 70s, zoning was applied, and they applied a zoning of R1A, which requires 1,500 square feet. I think if I were the planner today who were to apply that zoning, that's not what I would select for these small lots.
What would your recommendation be?
The R1 district, which only
has what minimums?
750 square feet.
So much, much smaller for the downtown area.
Correct.
So that's basically what the county requires, right?
In the R1 district for Highlands County, they require 750, that's right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I'm sure Mr. LeBlanc has a pretty good handle. We'll be able to answer our questions as it relates to how the house fits into the lot size. Just for clarification, is this is not a public hearing, or is it?
This
is a public hearing, okay. Any other questions or comments from the boards then? Hearing none, let me open it up to the public. Any questions or comments from the public? Yeah, please. We'll stick with the same rules here. We'll have 3 minutes.
Not that many people here.
Yeah, we'll have.
Good evening to the panel. My name is Wanda Hall, and that's my husband, Ronald Hall. And we live on Hibiscus Street, 332 Hibiscus. It's right down the street from the lot. I am representing the old town of Lake Placid. And the reason, gentlemen, that we do not wish to have any property built on that lot for rental is because somehow you all have forgotten about that little part of the section with the recoding as far as commercial and residential area. The people that have bought lots or that already have rental homes within that area, gentlemen, are not taking care of that property. They live somewhere else, and their property, which is in the back of me, we just built a $3,500 fence. And the people that own the land in the back of us, which are rental properties, it's a mess. The back of my property is woods, it's grass, it's overgrown. There are trees that are in the back of the empty lot, gentlemen, along with the property that's beside us, which is rental property. All that area is basically rental property. And no one from out of town that are buying the properties and the lots are taking care of them. They built a barbed chicken wire right in front of the back of my fence, wooden fence that we just brought, and it's tearing it down. We don't have anyone to go in half. Years ago, gentlemen, we had neighbors that owned the houses, and we could put our monies together and we could build fences where nobody had to pay too much money. We don't have that anymore. And now what we're finding is people are moving into this little small square of the old town, which is the original, come on now, Lake Placid. We don't have anyone to help us. What's happening is the rezoning is making it commercial so that the people many years ago where it was residential area, it's no longer residential, it's now commercial. We've got 71-year-old homes that should be able to be revamped, but it's not. They don't have a choice, like the people on the lake in the $1 million homes, where they can say, well, okay, you all are gonna let them build these little small homes for whatever reason, but we don't have that choice because our homes are being destroyed to the point that the committee, the zoning areas or department aren't letting us revamp our homes or rebuilding them. They're waiting until they fall down. And then there's nothing but vacant lamps. Come on, give us some money. Revamp the little square town of Lake Placid. That's what it's all about. That's where it started. Can I get 1/2 of a minute?
I'll give you another half, man. The line isn't long behind you.
Okay, I know it's been a long night.
Just a half, though, a quick one.
May I approach real quick?
You got something to show us?
Yes.
Yes, please, come on.
Because my grandmama used to say, gentlemen, words without actions or notifications don't mean anything. So I wanted to show you. Now this is the back of my wooden fence, if you will.
Can y'all see that okay?
On the lot where someone rents. And they put chicken wire up. And my fence is coming down. And we just don't have the heat. My husband's 89 and I'm 70. And we just don't have the money, you know. And then when you talk about letting other people come into the area to build on lots, they go away. And then they leave us with this. Oh, that's my dog. And then that's another part of an area that's in the back of us.
One of the questions, thank you so much for sharing tonight. Thank you for the pictures as well. How about, yeah, watch your step. That's a big step back there. You can go on back down. I'll talk to you when you find your spot. Thank you for sharing. I certainly hear your concern. Some of what I'm hearing you say is something that, have you traveled the channels of submitting some of these concerns to code enforcement? Because some of these things need to be addressed by the town, because we, as the town, are your defender in that way to make sure people aren't trashing the surrounding areas around your home. Have you submitted those concerns to code enforcement?
It's around my home. It's in the back of the home. And it's even to the point of that lot that's next to the bank. You can look across it and you can see on the other side.
Okay. I tell you what, you've got a great camera right there because you have that nice iPad. When you see stuff like that, would you just snap a picture of it? And would you either bring that down or email that down to the town, to our code enforcement office, so that we can send out the appropriate folks to go bring some accountability to that? I mean, we have some council present right now. I know that they don't want to see that stuff either, but we don't always notice it, but you do. So,
yes, sir. But it is basically reference to outsiders wanting to come in and build, whereas our little small community is falling down and no one's really helping us.
Understood. Yes, ma'am.
You know.
Thank you for sharing
And
your
I
concerns
thank you
tonight.
for listening, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you. Any other public comment while it's open? All right. Hearing none, I certainly want to, did we have any specific questions for Mr. LeBlanc on this project? Because I see him out there. Is there anything that you need to clarify while you're here, sir?
Mr. Rydell, your recommendation on the screen was?
Deny.
Will you put those back up?
Yes, I recommend denial based on the mechanism used, and it is up to the local planning agency's discretion to go either way.
Not because it's a bad project, not because it's a bad situation, it's just going about it the wrong way.
Correct.
Or you're basing it on just going by the book, there's nothing out of line?
Correct.
With my black and white glasses on.
And to this young lady's point out here, I mean, I think Mr. LeBlanc is building brand-new homes, and I know what he builds, and they will fit our downtown area. He's not a vacant rental property owner. He's going to be here. Go to any of his properties, and they're the best we got in Lake Placid. So, I mean, I don't think her concern is going to be the problem.
Sure.
Well, part of our concern was turning residential into commercial. He's wanting to keep it residential.
Right. Yeah. And I think, and maybe I'm wrong, I think what she was saying by it being commercial is now they're a business because someone's bought 10 homes and they're renting them out, so she's seeing that as commercial.
Yeah, and just, that's a good clarification. I don't know if she heard that. Yeah. I don't know if you heard that, ma'am, but part of the group that is building these aren't out-of-town folks. These are folks that live in town with us, have businesses in town, will take pride in those properties. They won't leave them behind for random renters to trash them and mess up your street. I believe, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, anybody who knows me knows I don't do anything half-ass, and when it comes to my renters, you know, and my properties.
Right, put that in the record,
Oh, yeah,
please.
keep that as- You know, and likely, the rent will include the grass mowing in it. You know, we'll take care of the grass and make sure it gets mowed every week, and it doesn't become a derelict-looking property. And you know, the reason I'm doing this is because I am trying to, be part of the solution to revitalizing this historic downtown. And the bigger picture of revitalizing the historic downtown is we need people living downtown. We need more residential. If you take a look in that section I'm talking about, I think the last houses built were 2006 or 2007. There were 3 houses built because Deborah Worley pulled a developer from the coast in and convinced him to build 3 more houses downtown, and he did. But I don't think I've seen anything since then. Maybe something's been built I hadn't seen, but you know, there's very little being built. But I think the reason it's not getting built is because you can't build 1,500 square foot houses downtown, because if you're going to build that, you're going to be building in Placid Lakes or Leisure Lakes or Lake June Point or, you know, places like that. So this is where we get affordable housing, you know, and, 100 years ago when they designed this downtown, they knew what they were doing, you know, at the time for a historic downtown. And then we've done nothing but try and screw it up since, you know. That's notoriously what happens. And then at this point in time, we're enlightened, so now we try and fix the mistakes of the past. Like in the 70s, they just overlaid it and said 1,500 square foot houses without thinking that that's really not the right place for 1,500 square foot houses. And when it comes to what the approval I'm trying to get today, when I submitted this, I didn't quite understand the entire process. I understand it now. From what I understand, there's 3 ways for me to go about this. The Board of Adjustments was one. Doing a zoning variance is another, and doing a full-blown PD is another. This is the fastest, easiest way to do it. It's 3 months and $1,500 to do the zoning variance, and it's 4 months and $1,500 to do, the PD. And the town's already overwhelmed with PDs and all those kinds of things. So this is not a complicated thing. In the end, it should get approved one way or the other. In my understanding is the Board of Adjustments can do it because it's less than 35% of a variance. So if you try and do more of a variance than 35%, it's not an option for you guys. But it is an option for you guys because I do meet the threshold of being under 35% variance that I'm looking for. So I'm hoping that, and like she said, it meets some requirements, but it doesn't meet all those requirements that, on the second hand. But I think it's a good thing for the town. I think this is what we need. And, we need affordable housing here, So while I'm going to build this, and I'm going to build more, I've got 5 more lots not in this section that, on Ohio Street that are 750 square foot requirement. Well, I'm going to build these same houses over there, just a little bit different elevations. So I'm going to try and keep popping these things in. At some point, I'm going to end up selling these houses, and then they're going to become affordable housing for whoever buys it. But for now, I'm trying to get to that next level of let's start getting some housing moving downtown. And when people see me building houses downtown, hopefully they'll start building houses downtown. I can't afford to do everything. I hope other people will do other things in the downtown. So I'm just kind of trying to lead by example and start making things happen here and there and all over so we can keep this effort going, right? And
Thank you, Mr.
ultimately get where we want to get with our
Yeah,
downtown.
thank you for that, Mr. LeBlanc. And I tend to agree with you for the sake of the board hearing this, that this is gonna and needs to get approved one way or another. It's just a matter of how much time it's gonna take you and how much money it's gonna cost you.
Yeah,
and
how much burden it puts on the town at the same time.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what I'd like for you guys to consider. I'd also like for you, for those of you guys that are new to board, we just switched hats. We were the local planning agency for the first part. Now we're the Board of Adjustments. The local planning agency part, we primarily make recommendations to the town council to do certain things. The Board of Adjustments, though, we make the decision on these things. So we are the ones deciding whether this moves forward or whether he starts over from scratch on a project that I just cannot see not working ultimately. And so that's my own opinion about it. Once again, I'm not going to make a motion, but that's how I would recommend that we view this personally.
Mr. Chairman?
Sir?
Are we open for questions yet?
Please.
Because this is really with Ms. Rydell. I think what Ken said, and Ken could repeat the whole thing, and we would probably understand it again, but there would be questions in the middle there, because you speak very eloquently, sir. But the 1,500 square feet and the houses you put in, and we could probably go and look at the houses, but it's not about the houses. It's about, I want to make this clear, it's about the land, right? It's about the 1,500.
The hardship would have to be on the land. Is that what you're asking?
Well, I mean, if you look at the house is, there's two houses there in the plan. One is for the 1,100 and one is for the 1,500. And I look back and forth at them, and the 1,500, like this one, this would be the 1,500. The other one, the other house, that's here somewhere.
No,
Hold
I'm
on.
There was
building
two of them.
two 1,500 square foot houses. Same house, side by side. I might mix the elevation up a little from one house to the next. One's got board and bat, and one's got siding. But the floor plans of the houses are identical.
They're
and they'll be
identical?
built side by
Okay.
side. Yeah, they are. And you know, and what I'm trying to do here is, if I had to build 1,500 square foot houses, I'd have to do 4-bedroom houses, and I'd have to rent it for $2,500.
Right.
And honestly, if I can do the 3-bedroom house at 1,100 square feet, my goal is to rent these for like $1,850. And that's way more, even though that's not terribly affordable, you know, it's way more affordable than $2,500 is, you know, in this day and age. And I have other rentals, and I've rented to other people.
I understand
and,
that's my question. The
Yeah.
main reason is that to be more affordable.
Yes.
That's really what you're shooting.
And to me, the hardship is, if I have to build 1,500 square foot, the hardship is on the person that trying to look for a place that they can rent, you know? And I have other rentals, and I've rented them out, and I've actually lowered my rent to people that I rented houses to, you know, $2,100 to $1,650, because I realized that they were struggling to pay their bills, you know? And I could, so I did. So I'm trying to be very aware these days of everybody in our community that's trying to survive here and pay their bills and everything else, you know. And so I'm trying to be affordable.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
this is the place to do it.
I have a number two part here. The 1,100 square feet, is that going to set a precedent? Any kind of well, the rest of them are going to be, now this is opening up a situation where the 1,500 square feet areas can be now 1,100 square feet, much more, if this passes.
Well, I think
Much
that's where the
easier.
hardship comes into play.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that's the million-dollar question, is because this isn't the appropriate mechanism for the request, are we setting precedent? Now, potentially, but I will say that in general, I'm looking into this area and trying to find ways to increase density in our downtown areas and ways to, so although it's not written in paper, my long-term goal is to make the minimum living areas smaller in downtown, potentially allow accessory dwelling units, more dense units, maybe townhomes, pocket neighborhoods, connected units, things like that.
Instead of this creating a troublesome precedent for us, should this create a reason for us to have the conversation and consider rezoning either downtown or certain areas of downtown on our own accord, without waiting for developers to come in? Let's go ahead and pave the way for them, so they're like, man, we could put some great 900 square foot houses in downtown Lake Placid that would serve small families or senior adults.
100%, that should be the goal.
I mean, so
ultimately.
I guess I'm saying, perhaps we look at it from a different angle. Maybe this is just giving a reason for us to have a different kind of conversation.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So town-initiated rezones are an option, but I haven't pulled the trigger on that because I'm really hoping that we can follow through with the master planning process, and we contract out with other professional planners who experience master plans every single day and will assist in us finding a long-term solution for that area. So I think there's solutions to be had.
Our discussion tonight is not to change the rule. He paid the fee to come before the Board of Adjustments to make his case to try to build two nice 1,100 square foot homes. We're just saying yes or no to that project.
That's it.
And it won't be setting a precedent, because anybody else wants to do the same thing has to come before Board of Adjustments and either do the same thing. If they're going to do it for 25 houses, they probably should go the other route.
Right. If they're
Yeah.
doing it on a large scale, they definitely need to go through a PD. We wouldn't recommend, I mean, I didn't recommend it tonight, but,
Can you put the motions back up?
Mr. Chairman, could we originally here were going to call the question, in other words, for approval.
I'm
So
sorry.
I would make a motion if it's okay with you.
Can we put the motion
If we
back
get
on the screen?
motions back up there,
Yeah.
I'll make one right now. You want me to read it, or you
I'll
want?
bring it back to the board for, to entertain
Dustin,
a motion.
I believe that lady has
I
another.
think it's number 2. I would entertain the number 2 approval for this 1,100 square feet. And
I'm
that's
sorry.
number 2, right?
number 2
Or
would
am I
be,
wrong? Is there a number 1? Because you want number 3. Let's get that straight. Which one is it?
Staff recommendation is number 3.
That she wants. I mean, your job, I know what your job is, it's cool. But Ken wants 1,100 square feet, and that's number 1 or number 2? Which one?
Number 1 is we are agreeing to the variance to allow that construction project to happen. Number 2 is we're agreeing to the variance with certain conditions that we wanted to add to
Yeah.
that.
That
So,
would be good, so
do
it'd
you
be
have
number
other
2.
conditions you want to add?
Not at this
Or
point.
you?
Not at this point.
All right, I'm waiting to entertain a motion if there are no further questions.
Yeah, I'm entertaining a
from the
motion
board.
for number 2.
You want-
That's what Ken wants, right?
Well, number 2 says
Number
with
2 you have
changes,
to
so
have.
number 1 is the same thing without changes. So I think number 1 is the one that we're
Number
looking
1
at.
is what he's
Yeah.
requesting.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
we'll go back to 1. Then,
You want
Okay.
me to read it?
Go ahead.
Move to approve a variance for the minimum living area of 1,100 square feet instead of the required 1,500 feet to construct 2 single-family dwellings on the property bearing parcel ID P-06-37-30-010-0010-0010.
We have a motion on the table.
Second.
Second, any further discussion?
Yes. I know you did it twice. Can you just explain one more time why you're not recommending this? Just because of the avenue? I mean, I think it's a good project. I think it fits. I think there, it's hard to go against staff
Yeah,
recommendations. So, I just want, one more time.
yeah. Let me actually pull up my staff report. I think it's a little bit more clear. So, Section 153-22 of Town Code requires that we make the following findings. Will this change the zoning map? No, it will not change the zoning map. Will this impair the supply of light and air? No, it will increase the supply of light and air to any adjacent properties. Will this increase congestion in public streets? This will not increase congestion. Will this increase the danger of fire or pose other threats to public safety? No, the buildings will be even further apart and even smaller, so it will decrease the chance of fire. Materially diminish or impair established property values within the surrounding areas. It will not. It is consistent with a lot of the homes today in the surrounding area. And in any other respect, impair the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. I don't really have concerns there. Now, this is where I have to take the black and white approach of, on this second set of findings, when it comes to an application of a variance, it asks, are there circumstances that exist which are peculiar to the land or building involved, which is not applicable to other land structures or buildings in the same zoning district? I couldn't say that that's true because all the properties in that area have R1A zoning and are held to the same standard. But Mr. LeBlanc makes the point, maybe because of that standard, there's been no construction since 2006. So the special conditions and circumstances are not a result of the actions of the applicant. Mr. LeBlanc is saying he can't meet the 1,500 square foot requirement, but if you do the math on the property, technically, you could meet that. The house could fit on that property. It's going to be tight, it's going to be close. You could actually even still have room for a shed. A literal interpretation would mean that the house could not be built, or just if the house was there, that it would have to be destroyed or anything of that nature. In this case, we're saying that in order for the applicant to construct dwellings with a minimum of 1,500 square feet of living area, it's the same as the requirement for all other properties in the R1A district. The variance, if granted, is the minimum variance necessary to make the reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. And as I mentioned earlier, you could build the entire home without any variance. Granting of the variance request will not confer on the applicant any special privileges, and in this case, I said it potentially could. So when requesting code deviations for the following purposes, so Mr. LeBlanc has expressed that he's looking to promote more efficient and economic uses of land, promote home ownership opportunities for all residents of the community, lower development and building costs by permitting smaller lots, networks of utilities and streets, and the use of more economic building types, accomplish more desirable living and working environments than would be possible through the strict application of the town zoning code. All of these bullet points are specifically pulled from the PD section of our code. So that means if you are looking to accomplish any of these 4 goals, you're supposed to do it through a PD. And then the granting of the variance. Okay, so will it be in harmony? And at that point I say no, just because it's inconsistent with the reason. So does it meet the limitations requirement? Yes, because as Mr. LeBlanc mentioned earlier, the Board of Adjustment can't grant more than 35% variance in the R1A district, which a 400-foot deviation complies with that. So that's what I was talking about. There's 2 sets of findings. One is really more about health, safety, and welfare, which this does not endanger the health, safety, or welfare of the residents. But the second set of findings is really honing in on whether or not this is the right tool.
But the outcome would be the same.
That's what I had
Outcome would be the same.
suggested was, there's some things that come before us where we look at it and we're like, it doesn't fit in this environment for a variety of reasons. It shouldn't happen or won't happen. But you can try this other route if you would like to, go around the block again. This is a situation that I feel is, it's an eventuality. And so I think in the spirit of what's best for Lake Placid and what's best for a developer in Lake Placid, that we are allowing for a variance, because this is gonna get approved one way or another. It's just how much money we're gonna cost a local developer to get to that point. So that's the only reason why I'm recommending a different motion than what the letter of the law is presenting here.
And if you come with 25 lots next time, do it the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a motion and a second on the table. We are in the discussion mode. Any further discussion from the board?
Can I say one more thing, make it make sense? It's not just about the destruction of rental properties and people coming into the neighborhood. It's also about the rezoning of the residential areas where people are being refused in my community that's got old homes that has been deemed from residential, let's make it clear, to resident. And these people, unfortunately, that are elderlies who cannot build brand new homes, but are not allowed to fix their properties that they already have, to the point that they're just crumbling down, to the point that they don't exist, where it's vacant lots, whether the people live here in this town with money, or whether it's people that's coming from the outside of this town with money that are being allowed to build new homes, whether it be for rental or whatever. But we don't have that luxury. This is
Yes,
my
ma'am.
point.
I appreciate you sharing that.
This is our point.
I understand the concern that you're bringing, and for the sake of
I'm speaking for the residents in the
current
area.
residents, yes, ma'am, this board doesn't have any latitude or power
I
to be able to
understand.
grant any funding for them.
But you got ears where you can listen to me.
I certainly hear the concern, and actually have a question about that here in just a second.
Yes.
This board doesn't have any authority to be able to grant any financial assistance for the revitalization of downtown homes currently. We're talking to a private developer
I know.
using his own resources to start beautifying the downtown area.
And I understand that, sir.
in a modest way. Now, one of the questions I do have is I know that we have done some, to your point, we have done some applying to something to the effect of Lake Placid being, downtown Lake Placid being registered as a historic district in Florida. Does that allow, just for this dear resident's concerned, do you happen to know if that allows for any sort of grants to some degree for current residences to be beautified, or do you happen to know?
Yes, unfortunately, my attempts for the historic district didn't work out this year, but I did find grants up to $500,000 for historic structures. But I will say, it sounds like what Ms. Hall is talking about is grandfathered structures. So like a home might have been built in the 1920s or 1930s, very close to the property line. Maybe a portion of it is in disrepair. They come in for a permit and they say, I just want to rebuild this back. And the answer is no, because at that, once zoning became applied, it became non-conforming.
Okay.
So in instances like that, where we have this option for a variance where it says there's a hardship with the building, you know, you purchased that home, someone else built it, it's fallen in disrepair, it's wood built, you know, it's a stick structure. In this case, something like a variance would be a suitable tool. So I'm going to give you my business
Yes,
card, Ms.
ma'am.
Hall.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Hall.
And I think.
Thank you, Ms. Hall, for sharing your concern. All right, yeah. Dana would be a great resource. She's very, very busy, so give her a little time to get back to you. But Dana would be a great resource to learn about all the information surrounding that. And if any options open up for yourself or other downtown residents to be able to beautify properties, Dana would be the one to find that out from. I appreciate you sharing it. Yes, ma'am. God bless you. All right. We have a motion and a second on the table. And we have had some extensive discussion related to it. Is there any other discussion from the board? Hearing none. Eva, please call the roll.
Chris Duncan,
Yes.
Dr. Oxer,
Yes.
Gary Freeman,
Yes.
Donald Clarke,
Yes.
Dustin Woods.
Yes. All right. With that being said, no further business. Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.